Howdy y'all, my name is Will. I'm the founder of Chisos Boot Company here in Austin, Texas. And when people come by the shop, the number one question essentially is, what's different about a pair of Chisos boots? Today we're gonna go over the number one and the number two, which are the first boots I designed, and give you some background into why we made the decisions that we did. The number one thing people mention to us when they try on a pair of Chisos boots is how comfortable it is. It doesn't feel like any other boot they've ever put on. We're very proud of this, and the impetus for Chisos was my own back pain. I wanted a handcrafted boot that was comfortable to wear all day, and so I thought about things like the angle of the arch support or how your heel is cradled in the boot. Those things play a big role in comfort. But the number one thing is the Chisos removable comfort insole. There is not another insole on the market like this. I spent months and months testing different materials, different polymers, and what we came up with was a triple density insole that then is leather top. So I guess that makes it quadruple density, but that's too hard to say. I tried different materials, including memory foam, and the problem I found with that is that it loses its rebound after about 2 hours. If you stand on it in the same position, it stops pushing back against you. So we swapped that out, and here's the magic. A traditional pair of cowboy boots becomes more comfortable over time as your toes make impressions into that leather insole. They still do, even with a Chisos comfort insole on top. As you wear the boots and you break them in, your feet form those indentions into the comfort insole and the leather insole underneath it. That then reduces how many micro movements your feet have to make to regain balance. So as you wear your boots, they continue to get more comfortable. A lot of people buy insoles and inserts to put into their cowboy boots, but the problem is they weren't designed to work together in concert. Everything about a Chisos boot was built from the ground up with the insole in mind. The last is a little bit larger. The heel counter is taller. It is all sized to work well with the insole. Even the aspect of the materials forming to your feet and then molding the leather insole underneath it was all conceived from the beginning. There are two broad categories to consider when you're building a pair of boots. The first one is going to be the interiors and the materials used, and the second category is going to be everything you see on the outside. Now, of course, they work together in tandem, but the thing to realize is that every decision you make has a trade-off. So let's look inside the boots first and kind of examine what decisions we made and what we think the pros and cons of those are. So we've got a cross section here of the Chisos number two, and I'm going to use this to walk us through some of the decisions we made when we built this boot. We build all of our boots like this. Now, the first thing is kind of table stakes for a good, well-made cowboy boot, which is going to be a stacked leather heel. This is not, a solid piece of wood. It is layers of leather that we utilize to build that heel, and it's nailed together from the inside. We also have a veg-tanned leather heel counter, which is something the big boys are kind of getting away from these days, and I think that is the sign of kind of a shinily made boot. So you have to have a veg tan leather heel counter. It forms the structural focal point of the rear part of the boot. It conforms to your heel and actually makes sure that boot lasts and becomes more comfortable over time. So stacked leather heel counter, these you should find in every well-made cowboy boot. So let's talk about the sole. This is obviously a very important part of any cowboy boot, and there are trade-offs that you have to pick. Do you want a artificial material that might last longer, but is less traditional, uses less craft, maybe doesn't break in as well, and not that great for the environment? Well, we went with a leather sole traditional. Now this is a 11 iron thick center cut leather sole. It is designed that over time, as you wear it, it will actually get softer, become more flexible. It's fantastic for dancing. And of course, it can be repaired and replaced. Now, it might need to be replaced a little sooner than something like a rubber sole would be. But we think that the idea of utilizing a leather sole, harkening back to traditional cowboy boots, of course, giving you that look and that aesthetic and the feel of it, is the superior trade-off. Related to that leather sole is also our very thick leather insole. Now this is a spot that a lot of a lot of the big boys skimp on because they know you're not going to see it. They put a very, very paper thin insole constructed into the boot. They then use canvas gimming and glue to attach it to the sole. Instead, what we do at Chisos is we use what is called a channel welt. So on that leather insole, we carve into it a channel, pull that back, and we sew leather all the way through. So the trade-off is that it's a little harder to make. It takes more time, it's a little bit more expensive. However, it means that you can resole that boot more times and it will hold up. It keeps water out and better than a canvas would, and it's a little bit more traditional. And so you might see a theme here is that I've tried to pick craft whenever I could when I thought that the trade-off was worth it. One trend we've seen recently is synthetic shanks in boots made of plastic and things like that. Now, again, I'm a little bit of a traditionalist. I like a steel shank. You know, they used to oftentimes be made from actual nails that would get hammered flat and put into the boot. And you can see that here in the boot built in. Now this is providing the rigidity to keep the form of the boot. Essentially makes this part of the boot almost bulletproof in terms of what it can take. Again, along with the thickness of the leather sole and the leather insole and the steel shank and the leather stacked heel, that's essentially where the weight of this boot is going to be coming from. The trade-off there is that you're getting something more durable. Those internal parts essentially are going to last. A big thing that happens with cowboy boots is you may resole the bottom, but you will wear out the interiors, and then you have to do a full rebuild, even sometimes getting them re-lasted. Well, if we pick better materials up front, it's gonna be a lot longer before you have to do that because the boot is gonna hold up to a lot more wear and abuse. Let's talk about the attachment method that we selected to take the sole and attach it to the rest of the boot. So the upper portion has got a 3/4 welt. This is fairly standard. We're again attaching that to the welt, which is then sewn to our channel welt inside the boot. The lower portion uses a combination of both lemon wood and brass pegs. Now let's talk about why we selected that. Lemon wood pegs are the traditional method for piecing together a cowboy boot. And the reason is that when the bottom of that boot gets wet or exposed to moisture, lemon wood expands and then contracts at the same rate as the leather does. So this keeps a good seal so that moisture doesn't get to the inside of the boot. But in my experience, and we actually blew up a pair of boots, you can watch that video and see the results, brass nails are superior in terms of the resiliency of holding the boot together. When you are creating a boot, you form it on a last. And when you're nailing in with the brass pegs, they hit the steel plate and then they bend and they form a hook. That hook holds the boot together very, very well. So there's a little bit of controversy between lemon wood pegs and brass nails. And the trade-off and decision we made is to use both. The lemon wood peg provides an excellent coverage that keeps moisture out. We then supplement that with a few brass nails, which add to the durability of the boot. They really do a great job of hooking in and keeping that sole attached to the rest of the boot. So you can comment below if you agree or disagree, but that is the opinion, the perspective that we take here at Chisos. Now let's talk about the exterior of the boot. First of all, durability and comfort, again a theme you might notice here, were the things that I used to select the leather we use for all of the uppers. We don't use calfskin, we work with a dairy farm and we use retired dairy cow leather. It's a little thicker and stronger. It also has all the unique markings of an animal that's lived its whole life. So no two paired Chisos are exactly alike, and that's something that I think is a bonus. We also have a proprietary process where we help soften up the leather. And so when you pull on a pair of Chisos, not only is it strong and sturdy, you've got that comfort for your feet. You also can feel the suppleness of the leather. It's fully lined with cowhide. It's not using a pigskin or anything like that. And the final touch was that I wanted a understated cowboy boot design. I wanted the embroidery to be classy and not too loud, but to have meaning. Every design of a pair of Chisos harkens back to Big Bend National Park, which contains the Chisos Mountains, our namesake. The number one actually has the mountain range on the boot, including the night sky and then the sunrise. And the number two is my recreation of some of the petroglyphs in the park itself. And so they're very meaningful to me. In a world of trade-offs, I think Chisos are the perfect balance. They're durable yet comfortable. You can do work in them or go out of the town. I think it's maybe the perfect boot, but the best judge of that is you. And I hope you give us a shot. And when you do, please let us know what you think. Thanks.